guys, welcome back. By request, what is the best power move order to do? Well, some people say there is not really an order, you can do it any order you want. I don't agree on that at all, because when I started breaking, I also tried straight up moves like airflare or whatever, and really, that's not the way. You really want to build it up. Otherwise, yeah, you can do it at once. It is possible. It's not untrue that you can't do it, but it takes way longer, and in the end result is just lower. You want to build from basically from the ground up. That's the best way to do it, in my opinion. Of course, you don't have to do exactly what I say. Like for some people, they start with the move flare. That if you can start like that, that's totally fine, right? But let me explain what I think is the best order. So when you start with power moves, probably the first move you should try is the backspin. The backspin is an extremely simple move in a way. Of course, to do a killer backspin, it takes some practice. But the whip of the backspin, where you kick circular, and spin, right? That kick is exactly the same in the windmill, in the halo, in the airflare, in the flare. Because in these moves, like let me demonstrate with the flare, see this leg? It goes circular, right? It's the same. In the windmill it's the same. In the halo it's the same. So it's quite handy to practice and understand your backspin. Now, quick tip on this, because a lot of people can do backspin, but especially beginners do something like this. They spin on their butt and go on your back, right? Try to really kick circular and then kick this bottom leg also circular and really open first. First spin like this and then pull your legs in. So just a quick tip. Now it's not really necessary, but it helps a lot with your entrance from other power moves. So that's what I suggest. So then what you need to understand about power moves in general, this is the first one you practice, right? Is you need to master freezes more than anything. With good freezes, power move isn't that hard. And that includes hard moves like 90 or airflare. You know, it's really hard, but if you have the solid freezes down, it's not as hard as it sometimes looks. So instead of, only practicing the power move, I really suggest mastering freezes. Now, one of these freezes is what I call the turtle freeze, or the most basic freeze. It's right here in one hand, see this? So if you can stand like me, exactly like this, on one hand with ease, the hand glide is for free. So what's the hand glide? You put something slippery on your hand, right? I don't have one right now, but you get the idea. You go into that freeze, and all you do is step yourself in a circle. This is not a hard move. The only way this move is hard is if you don't have a solid freeze. So practice every day on this freeze. It becomes really easy. And then stop tapping like this, and boom, there you go. After you master it a little bit, especially if you can stand on one hand like I just showed you, this hand glide is for free, right? It's a very simple move. I think you should learn this before you even try something like the windmill. So it's not a hard move at all. Practice on your freeze, master the freeze, and there you go. So, talking about the freeze yet again, also for beginners, this is a very good move. So I never practice this, I can do it obviously, but I hate this move. But it's one of the best moves for a beginner to start with, and that's the turtle. So I just said, look, this is quite important, right, for all kinds of power moves. Windmill, halo, blah, blah, blah. But just simply train also the other hand. So if you can do well this hand and that hand, you can start walking, and there you have basically the turtle for free, right? So what I suggest, even though you're if you're like me, you don't like that move. You think it looks stupid, blah, blah. So there's a couple of reasons. Back in the day, I had good jackhammers on one hand, right? Because I always trained crickets, but I never trained turtles. But turtles actually can give you space turtle, UFO, etc. So there's a couple of plus sides to this. The main plus side though is that you train both arms, and that is easier for flares. You simply doing for a lot of freezes also gives you more strength. Just training your left arm, in my case the right arm, is not good enough because your left arm will probably be weak. Just do a lot of turtles, you increase the strength, right? So I feel as you go steady on this route, and just practice the move every time a little bit. Main thing is the backspin, and maybe turtle is a little bit more important. You can do crickets and all those moves if you want. They're not necessary. It's up to you. So if you want jackhammers, like I said, train crickets. If you want space turtles, train turtles, right? So then we get to the windmill. Well, windmill in the beginning comes from the freeze, and I highly suggest you do it like that. So there's multiple ways to want to windmill, but I suggest doing it from the freeze simply because of excuse me, simply because of transitions. Windmill to flare, windmill to halo, yada yada yada. The freeze very handy to have. Obviously turtle to windmill, blah blah. So we're gonna practice it from the freeze. I did tutorials on this, all these moves by the way. You don't have to really watch it. But here's a tip for people practicing windmills if you have trouble with it. Of course the freeze is very important. The backspin is very important. The first windmills were actually called continuous backspins, right? But when you do these moves and you do that freeze, try to really push your legs open and wide like this. You know, if you want bent legs in your power move, if you want loose legs in your power move, it's not hard to do that after you can do it really, really clean. First do it clean, do it correctly. This means constantly pushing your legs open and in a split. So do not just push them wide and that's it. The whole time you do the move, try to push your legs really, really wide. The better and the more stretched out you are, the better it is. So for these moves you need to stretch obviously to make them really, really clean. Just work at your splits. But when you look at my windmill right now, I really open the legs, right? Very important, and that's with the freeze. So you need to have the windmill with the freeze down, and then I suggest you keep working on it till you feel comfortable enough to do barrel mills. So barrel mills, you just roll over your forehead and use the arms to whip yourself on. So you leave the shoulder bound. Get that move if you can. So basically what you do, you have the windmill down. You can do 10 rounds easy, increase the speed. This is not hard. What you're gonna do, every windmill, you push around harder. Every time your whip becomes faster. At some point you start rolling like this, right? At that point you can start rolling over the forehead. So what you can do, every windmill you already put your forehead on the floor, you try to really roll over it. Every windmill you push in harder. At some point you won't reach the freeze anymore, just start doing windmills. And there's another way to increase speed. I did a video about this by the way. If you get to this part right here, this bottom leg, you whip it very, very hard to the side. Whoop. This will also increase your speed. So you can double increase speed and do very, very fast windmills, right? And then try to do the barrel mill. So there's another move I really want you to have when we're talking about windmills. That's the head mill. So I did a lot of fits on talking about windmill to handstand, windmill 90, windmill airflare, and all these moves. It's really handy if you can do this move. Well, what is it? Well, it's sort of like a barrel mill, but you actually use your hands. You go on your forehead, collapse, and go back on your forehead like that. See? Because this way is very easy to pop up. So back in the day, I didn't really use this one, and I could do windmill 90 and crap, but I learned a lot with this, right? And windmill elbow airflare is super easy. Try to get the head mill. I did a tutorial on it. I feel if you have the barrel mill down, the windmill with the freeze, and the head mill, you're pretty much good, and you can train more or less. Of course, you have windmill masters. They can do all kind of shape with windmill. Nowadays, it's not that necessary. It's good to have at least the barrel mill down, like I said. If you want to do more, it's up to you, right? From there, you can practice. So, at the same time, as you feel you start mastering the windmill, I suggest working on the flare. So, for me, the flare was hard to get. And I'm not talking about doing 5, 6, 7 flares, because I could do this the first year. I could do probably around 12 flares. I remember I doing one day and not scraping the floor with my legs. But the next day I scraped again. This was 2 reasons. One, I didn't understand what I was doing. This was sort of pre-internet time. There was internet, but not like now with the YouTube tutorials and everything, right? But also I didn't stretch, I didn't do anything, and I started working on this sort of when I was already could do flare, but I got it really good when I trained 4 years already, right? Or 3 years or 4 years, and I really started focusing on stretching and opening the legs, but flares also strain. So I really suggest also working on core and active flexibility. So I had students that were hyper flexible. They could do oversplit deeper than the split, but they couldn't do the flare. Every time their legs wouldn't lift, sort of, right? So this is active flexibility. Instead of just sitting, you need to be able to kick out of nowhere. So there's many details about this. I did a couple of tutorials on flare, right? And how to get a really good one. So I feel as you train this one, this is your main focus for till it's really, really good. If you can do flare 90 and a couple of times, you're good enough. Then you sort of, if you want, you can sort of let it go, but I think you should always sort of keep that flare. And what I did, which I think really is good, but now I don't do it anymore, so my flare is pretty much going to shit. I forced myself to do one time in the training 10 flares in a row. And by doing that, if I did 7 flares, if I did 9 flares, it wouldn't count and I had to do it again. So usually in the training, even if I wasn't really focusing on flare, I did like 30 flares or something like that, right? Because I had some attempts and this and that. And then, of course, I also used my flare, and I really suggest you also do this. I have students, you know, their flare is not that bad, but all they do is just flare, flare, flare. That's shit. You want to use that move. You work the most at it. Combo that move, right? So flare, windmill, very good move to improve your flare. Windmill flare, very useful, right? So you can actually combo that move. So I really suggest you get that. Now I feel personally that the halo is not a necessity, but it does help a lot with a lot of combos. Personally, I like halos. I like even to do them, but they usually hurt my head unless I sweat a lot, right? But halo, in a way, not a hard move. All you need to understand is this freeze, this sort of halo freeze or handstand freeze, and to pop on your head. If you can do these 3 things, you pretty much got the halo. You just have to practice on swooping and, you know, boom, you got it. It's not a hard move. You have to practice on this row, right? So, head spin is not a necessity. A lot of people can do head spin, but it's actually a really, really easy move. All you have to do is be patient. This means you go on your head, you angle the legs down, and you balance like this. As long as you can do this relatively good, all you need to do is slowly start tapping. As you do this, you're good, right? Slowly tap, do not rush it. 3 months you'll have head spin without hands. First start with tapping, right? I did a tutorial on head spin, check it out. Slow tap, not fast. Like everybody tries to whip hard with the legs and all that crap. No, in the beginning go slow, it will, because this is faster than whipping as hard as you can and falling all the time, right? But, you know, keep at it, 3 months. Also, after you got good taps, which go relatively fast, right? You start, of course, slow and get to them. Try to work on loose a lot, even without tapping. Just one tap and try to spin. Head balance is the key, guys. If you got head balance, you won't have trouble with that spinning without hands. Without this balance I just showed you, it's a hard move. But with this balance, it's very easy. Now, of course, you can be head spin master. Then you train a fuckload of head spin. You don't have to. I feel if you have the basic one down, it's good enough. I feel halo and head spin are not necessary moves, but flare and windmill are, right? So I suggest getting at least flare and windmill down. But those are some moves that actually very nice. A lot of people like them. I have friends that can pretty much halo on any floor, right? And I know like people that can spin on almost every floor, and they don't even need a head spin beanie. Personally, I need a beanie or I won't spin right though. Those moves very sort of basic moves, I feel. But if you can master the flare, very good. So I feel these are the building blocks for your ground power. But now we'll get up into the air, aka air power. So the air power, the most important move actually is press and spinning handstands. So spinning handstands, aka the star walk. I also did a tutorial on this. It's a very simple move, right? All you're gonna do is go up and walk on your hands like this. It's super easy, right? So this, in my opinion, is kind of the building block for a lot of air moves, air power. And then also, what's also a very good building block is good solid freezes. Train as much as you can on freezes and also on handles on both sides, as much as you can. These are the building blocks. So as you can see, I didn't do so well. I also just came in just saying, right? But this is what you train from day one. Handstand, spinning handstand, freezes, and you try to do handhops. So, you know, there's a good side, a good way and a wrong way to hand up. So if your legs are all the way to the back, try to sort of work on these tucked hand up. Now, I'm not the best at hand up at all, but this is a very important building block. So once you get solid in this, you can start working on moves like 90, 2000, invert 2000, invert 90, yada yada yada. So just using that spinning handstand, you can already 90, right? So you get very solid at it. But instead of, you know, stepping around like Wall Smith, you step all the way around and lift the fingers as you get to that end point. Even if you won't spin, this is sort of the way you start practicing 90, in my opinion. This is the best way. And it's very, very easy in a way. So you just go upright, you spin right. And all I did actually was step around. If I do slow-mo, watch this. Step around, right? At the end, you spin. Very good to do. 2000, yet again, it's sort of like that freeze, same as head spin. Try to master this freeze right here, right? If you have that very solid freeze, you use the same technique, but with the shoulder. To me, always 2000 is easier. So invert 90, well, you need something, I need something slippery on my hand, but I really suggest you practice without something slippery. All you need to have is a solid power move entrance, enter, and hold. As you have something, or you can just lift the fingers and you spin. Excuse me for the noise, basically there's a storm going on outside right now, but I hope it's not too, you don't hear it too much. So, very important, I suggest working on these moves. Now, if you do not practice on these air moves, but only work on ground, it's not that good. Now, then we get sort of to the harder part, with these air flares and combinations with your low and high moves. For instance, windmill 90, flare 90. So all air flare combos, I think you can do as long as you can go to the 90. So let's say you do swipes. I think swipe is not a necessary move, because I was in Vietnam, a quick story, right? Because my wife's family is from there, right? And I was there with power moves. They couldn't do swipe. But they had amazing power, like amazing. They were like, and they asked me, how do you do the swipe? I looked at this guy for, man, buddy, you don't need swipe. You have the best power I've seen. Because, you know, back it was 2008 or something. But this guy did one-hand elbows, multiple, like 7 rounds of 90. And then they said, yeah, you don't need swipe, trust me. But hey, swipe a good move in a way. But if you can do swipe 90, if you can do windmill 90, if you can do halo 90, if you can do flare 90, all these moves are the same as going to the air flare. It depends a little bit on your air flare. So if you have very low air flare, obviously you don't need to go to the 90. But if you can do these combos, it's very handy. So combo up to 90, very handy. At least to have a couple, right? So I suggest working on this. As you work on windmill flare, it makes sense to try to get these moves up to a handstand and then up to a 90. But the spinning handstand really, really works. So then we get to airflare. Well, I did tutorials on all these moves pretty much, but airflare sort of a pretty hard move to get, I guess. But if you have very solid foundation, it can go quite fast. Like I said, that crew in Vietnam where I was better than almost, well, not as all of them, but I was younger, of course, and I was pretty fit, right? And I saw this guy, and I saw he was a beginner, right? Then I saw his flare. I was like, ooh, that's a good flare for a beginner, you know. And then I also need this flare, air flare, flare, air flare. And this was the beginner. It was the worst noob of the whole crew. Everyone in that crew could do it, which I was really impressed with, right? But they were all sort of power movers except 2 guys. Pretty cool, right? Like I said, they couldn't do swipe. They could do a lot of other stuff, right? But then there's multiple ways to do air flare. I explained in 2 tutorials actually what to do. So the first one I explained with the cartwheel technique. That's sort of what I use. So when you know how to do the cartwheel technique, you land pretty comfortable and solid from your air flare, which I really, really like. I like to be in control. But the classic way is actually sort of like, you know, from a flare, you just do a flare but way higher and with a twist in it. Pretty nice. I suggest, as you are a beginner, you can work on the air flare a little bit higher, and it should be quite solid. Yet again, the spinning handstand is sort of a way to get these moves, guys. I'll just, like I'm not warm right now, but let me just throw one airflare, but I'm on purpose stay quite high with the body, right? And then you just see me walk over. Now this is not what I normally can, I kind of use a different technique, but it really can help you. So yet again, you go in, tuck the legs, spinning handstand walk, right? It's going to really help you get these moves down, and of course you need to work on it to make it clean. There is more way than one to do it. I feel this very solid. So, after you mastered air flares, you know, like, yeah, you're good. You can do more or less. So for power move, I feel you can do hand hop on both sides, very good for air moves. Handstand, as much as you can, freezes, right? Duck freezes, L kicks, pike freezes on both sides. Like both sides, good. And as deep as you can. So as you can see, I'm not as flexible or that deep freezes. Work on this more even than your power moves, but at the same time, work on your flare. So if you don't even have to work so much on windmills, I feel, right? So then you actually kind of done with the standards, and you can work on whatever you like. And let's say you want killer halos, right? Then yeah, your main focus will be on getting that halo really good. But that's sort of the power move order you take, right? First you work on backspin. This is, as a beginner, one of the most important moves. Try to get a really good one. If you don't have a slippery floor, you can simply work on windmill. Because if you stop a windmill on your back, then you have a backspin, right? It's very easy. Then work on, well, I say work on turtles, but if you hate turtles like me, maybe you can work on that dark hammer, which is jumping like this, or yeah, or maybe you can do something like inward hand glide, something like that, right? So a hand glide, very easy move. I suggest you practice it because you have it in no time. But again, gives you stuff like spinning air chair, right? It's basically the same, but in the back. Also suggest working on this in two sides. Hand glide, easy. Then windmill, right? I just explained. Windmill, one of the most important basic foundation moves, simply because that whip is exactly like the other moves. That's up to you, right? You can practice, but I suggest working on your flare for a couple of reasons. I know some people that don't have flare, still amazing guys, right? Like in power even. They do windmill, air flare, you know, all combos, you just don't do flares. Hey, if that works for you, it's fine. But if you like the flare, work as much as you can on the flare. And at the same time, start working on air power. If you can do 1 or 2 rounds of 90, it's already pretty good. And then I suggest working on handholds. So as you get very comfortable in these moves, you can actually start combining them. I suggest working on air flares. So air flares is sort of the last thing you work on, but you can work on it earlier. It depends on, some people learn this in a year or 2 and even have perfect, correct form, right? Like low angle, like I explained in the tutorial. There's more than one way to do it. I can actually do it low. I just don't prefer that because I feel less control, but it's an option, right? Working on that air flare. But if you don't have solid foundation, the air flare is sort of a move a lot of people get stuck in, and the flare also. But flare usually because people don't do the proper things like stretching and blah blah blah, right? So that's actually what I see as a good power move order, guys. I even I gave tips on how to do them even a little bit. I think if you do all this, you know, you're good on your path actually to power. But you know, it's all a little bit up to you. You don't have to follow my path at all. Like, actually I didn't follow that path myself. When I started, well, I didn't have that much knowledge, of course. And I already had a friend of mine, actually he's a good friend of mine, and he was a student of mine. He always practiced those freezes, right? But my way was just throwing with as much power as I could. Everything with as much speed and power as I could. But you know, back then of course I was a lot better than him. But at some point he started transferring those freezes in very good power. But there's more ways. Some people like power moves like Punisher, right? Very fast, powerful movement, stretched out, looks very good. I don't even like that so much. I always like movers like Kill or the Ant, you know, like more of the transition power and not even that fast, but really nice form. And myself, I'm not even that clean, right? I'm not that I'm amazing or anything, but I do know a lot about it. I had some students who were amazing, like Emil or Quinten, you know. These guys, pretty high level power, can do one-hand airflares, all that crap, right? And that came also from all this knowledge, right? So if you want to follow this route, you can do it, right? Work hard on power move. Actually, I suggest, especially if you're younger, your main thing should be power move. Do not worry so much about, you need to have footwork, you need to have top ropes on a decent level, right? But your main focus should be on power if you want to get good anyway. Fast, if you're a little bit older, just do whatever you like, because then it sort of, well, if you're under 30, like I'm over 40, right? But if you're under 30, try to sort of get it before you get 30 years old. Otherwise, it becomes really, really hard to get. So guys, these are my tips. Hope it helps. See you next time.